Donte Whitner has seen a game or two of import between the Packers and the 49ers. He's also been coached by Jeff Hafley. He joins us on the show today to break down a must-win game for the 49ers and a chance for the Packers to get off the schneid.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers. The number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. What time is it? It's game time, baby. And it is almost game time. Donte Whitner, former San Francisco 49ers safety, also former Cleveland Browns safety. Why is that relevant? Well, he was a Cleveland Browns safety when Jeff Hafley was the defensive backs coach in Cleveland under Mike Pettin. He also happens to be a three-time Pro Bowler. Also played for the Buffalo Bills, played for the Washington, then Redskins, now Commanders. And he's got a lot to say about this scheme with Jeff Hafley, the 49ers, why they have struggled, and why he thinks the Packers are going to get the 49ers' best shot on Sunday afternoon. A couple quick things, though, we have to hit before we get there, aside from the scar tissue that Packer fans are dealing with right now. Brock Purdy did not throw on Wednesday, tried to give it a go on Thursday, and couldn't even make it through practice, could not even throw. We don't know right now what the decision is with the starting quarterback. No quarterbacks met with the press on Thursday. The starter is supposed to meet with the media on Friday. So we may find out today who the starting quarterback is. And if Brock Purdy is again unable, he does not seem like he is tracking to play. Like right now, it seems like he is less than 50-50 to play in this football game. Nick Bosa seems like he is less than 50-50 to play in this football game. And yet, I'm hearing from a lot of Packers fans, I don't care. They scored 30 points with CJ Beathard, and we had to sweat that game out. I need you guys to remember that that 2018 Packers team, how they finished. How did that season finish? Mike McCarthy got freaking fired that year. They won 6 games that year. Aaron Rodgers was playing on a broken leg that year. It was a disaster. So, and don't bring up 2019, the NFC Championship game where they beat the Packers without a quarterback. First of all, that 2019 team was incredible. They were unbelievably good, that 49ers team. The Packers team wasn't. They got pretty lucky in a lot of close games. They were a good team, but they were not anywhere near as good as the San Francisco 49ers that year in retrospect. So we don't have to do this. We really don't. Now, the bad news for the Packers, Jair Alexander has a torn PCL or a PCL injury, a sprained PCL. We don't know exactly the extent of the injury at this point today, but that was the injury. The injury that happened in Jacksonville was the PCL. He tried to tough it out against the Bears, couldn't give it a go. It's interesting that he is letting this be public now. He told Matt Schneidman over The Athletic. And I do wonder if part of it is like people have been making accusations on social media, and fans are, they'll say some wild stuff about toughness and wondering, does the team want him to play? Is he just not up to it? I think that's silly, but I'm glad he's being transparent about it and saying, no, this is a real injury. And PCL is that's a tough injury. If he's not going to play this week, might not play next week. The Packers need him out there. That's been made very clear. That being said, Carrington Valentine played in the playoff game last year, played pretty well. Keyshawn Nixon had a chance at an interception in the playoff game last year. They can man the fort here. But in order to win a Super Bowl, you want to beat the Lions. You want Jair Alexander being able to cover Amon-Ra St. Brown if you need it to happen. You want Jair Alexander to cover Devontae Smith and or AJ Brown if you need it to happen. So they need Jair Alexander to get to where they want to get to. The question is going to be, can he be healthy? I think the Packers are going to win this football game on Sunday because, number one, I don't think Brock Purdy is going to play. And if Josh Dobbs plays, I think the Packers win by 2 touchdowns. And if Brock Purdy does play and he's a shell of his former self, and Nick Bosa doesn't play, I'm still going to pick the Packers by a touchdown, a solid touchdown. This team, Rob Domofsky had a great stat. And I want to get this in here before we get to the game because I just thought it was so instructive for us when we think about the impact of Joey Bosa. The 49ers pressure rate with Joey Bosa, 33%. They have an 8% sack rate per dropback. It's pretty good. Without Bosa, their pressure rate goes to 18%, and they have a 2% sack rate. Each one of those, if they were the team's full-time numbers, would be the worst in the league. So basically, their pass rush is the worst in the league. They would rank 33rd out of 32 teams in pass rush when Bosa's not out there. That's what this defensive front is. So if Bosa can't go, this 49ers team is not going to be able to stop the Green Bay Packers offense. It will be up to the Green Bay Packers to do that. And they've, in fairness, done a decent job of that this year. So the injuries are going to be a big part of this football game. And I don't want to hear anything about, well, if they don't have Brock Purdy, it's not going to mean as much. Yes, it is. If you can keep them out of the playoffs, the rest of their schedule is brutal. Beat them, they have 6 losses. It's going to be damn hard for them to get in the playoffs with 6 losses if that's where they exit Sunday afternoon. If you can kick this team out of the playoffs, I don't care if it's with Brock Purdy. I don't care if it's with Brock Lesnar at quarterback. You take the win any way you can get it. Maybe more impressive if Brock Lesnar is the quarterback, frankly. All right, let's get to our conversation with Donte Whitner. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. I want to thank my parents because they're very important to me, and I think they provided me with a lot of lessons that I am finding more useful than I ever realized in the moment. Very useful in raising my own children. This month is all about gratitude. And along with the people that I just shouted out, my parents, there's another person that we don't get to thank enough, ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't always easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. Therapy can help you learn coping skills, how to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's entirely online with BetterHelp, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature to help you buy tickets that makes tickets faster, easier, better. It's called Game Time Picks. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curated deals makes it easier to find the best price on great seats, and you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Curation makes it easy, and then Game Time takes the mystery out of it with all-in pricing. Toggle that little feature on. You can see your price up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Joining me now, former 49ers safety, former Jeff Hafley pupil in Cleveland, Donte Whitner, someone who we've had on the show before. We talked about beating Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers no longer in the building. Now it's Jordan Love. But this 49ers team, still very much a championship contender. But Donte, one of the things that I've been trying to figure out this week is I see a lot of the same faces They're still in the garnet and gold, but this doesn't quite look like some of the 49ers teams that we've seen the last few years. Do you get that same impression?
I do get that same impression. When you look at the personnel, there's been a downgrade, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The only returning starter on the defensive line was Nick Bosa. They brought in they brought in Floyd, they brought in Elliott, they brought in Malik Collins, but a lot of those other guys like Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave, who's on IR, they're all new guys on that front seven. And when you think about the loss of Dre Greenlaw, now you have Devondre Campbell, and you guys know a lot about Devondre Campbell. He played in Green Bay. On the back end, it's a totally new team. They just rewarded Diamador Lenore. Travarius Ward has been out for personal reasons. So Renardo Green, the rookie out of Florida State, has been getting a lot of reps, and he started the last 2 consecutive games. But in the back end, the 49ers are starting a rookie in Malik Mustafa, and then a second-year player in Jair Brown. So they've been going through a rebuild while also trying to keep those championship aspirations.
I don't want to derail us too far, but does Mustafa remind you a little bit of you?
He does. He has a different body type, but his explosiveness and his ability to change direction and his contact courage is on par with myself.
It's the contact courage. He wants to come up and tackle everything in his path, and that was very much. I mean, come on, Donte Whitner. That was you. So I definitely see that. He's got a little ways to go on the gun work. He's got to get the arms growing a little bit if he wants to fully match you, right? This Packers defense on the other side is coordinated by a guy that you played for in Cleveland, Jeff Hafley. And he is someone who, and he likes to tell you, he doesn't care if you're a first round pick or UDFA. He wants to put the best guy out there. What do you remember about Jeff Hafley?
Well, he's a fiery guy. He understands football at a high level, and he holds his players to a higher standard. And when they signed Jeff Hafley as a defensive coordinator, I initially thought, like, yeah, this is his role. And what he's running over there is just a replica of what Mike Pettin was doing when he was in New York and Cleveland, with the high pressure 3-4, putting a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage. The philosophy is to attack, hit the quarterback as much as possible so that he wears down in the fourth quarter. He starts to see ghosts, and he turns the football over. They want to outnumber you at the point of attack. They want to confuse your offensive line, but they also want to protect themselves with a lot of the cover fours and the zero blitz where they disguise. So if I know Jeff Hafley, and from the film that I've been able to watch so far, he's doing the same things that he was doing in Cleveland, at Ohio State, and at Boston College, but the players are interchangeable, and they seem to have caught on to some of the principles. There's still some holes in the defense where you can get them at some points, but overall, they have a pretty good, solid defense.
When he came in, the DBs especially talked about Jeff Hafley, the teacher. If you talk to those Ohio State guys, they talk about his intelligence, but also his ability to communicate with players. What did you get from him as a teacher? How did he get buy-in from players? Because we talked to Evan Williams a week or two ago, and he was like, there is a certain amount of coaches say they want everyone to play fast, but there's a way that he gets the information to you that really does free you up as a player.
Well, I was an older player when we were together, and he was a little younger of a coach, and I think that we took some things from each other. And to be a great teacher, you first have to be a great learner.
Yeah.
You have to be able to learn from players that played in different systems, that's been in the system longer than you, but you also have to put your own twist on it. And to be able to have the ability to take simple coverages, but pre-snap make them look like other coverages based on depth, based on lateral and vertical distance, based on the small things, based on just the feet of the defensive backs from the nickel to the corners, how many yards you're off of wide receivers, your eyes, your body mannerisms. All of those things matter in playing great coverage. So when it comes down to teaching, he's not only teaching the coverage, he's teaching the mannerisms, he's teaching the eye discipline, he's teaching the technique, he's teaching the leverage, he's teaching the depth, he's teaching the sense of urgency. So it's not just put a coverage out there, It's about the intricate details within the coverage, within the protection, within the way that you attack protections that make your defense successful. So that's what he's talking about when he talk about Jeff Hafley.
Yeah. One of the things that he has brought to Green Bay that we haven't really seen in recent years is a lot more simulated pressures, these creepers, these situations where you're showing all out pressure, you're showing a 6-man pressure, and maybe only 4 come, but it's not the 4 you think. As a defensive player, first of all, what are you trying to accomplish defensively? I think that part is obvious, but 2, what are the potential pitfalls of both learning and then executing a system like that?
Well, when you're playing a system like that and it's all about affecting the offensive line and getting free runners at the quarterback, you have to have a high level of understanding of how protections work, which means that pre-snap, you have to be able to dictate which way the offensive line is going to slide, and usually the backside guard to that slide protection, the opposite the way it's sliding, is the free guy that everybody tries to work on, whether it's the backside guard sliding. So whatever games you're trying to run, you can slide the protection, but you also have to have good defensive backs that are intelligent, that understand when the ball is going to be snapped, right? Never sacrifice your disguise for where you're supposed to be coverage-wise, but then also, what are we trying to accomplish here? Well, we're trying to run an overload blitz, and we're trying to get the offensive line to slide left, and we're trying to get the quarterback to think the blitz is coming left, but we're trying to bring it from right. So we need the backside guys, whether it's a safety, a will linebacker, or a defensive end, to have perfect timing as to when the ball is snapped, to be at the line of scrimmage to execute the blitz in a timely manner. So it doesn't matter the variety of different blitzes. It's all about attacking that backside guard and that running back, right? So that's what they're doing with their philosophy. And then when you get a team that's, okay, they attacked us in the backside guard and the running back, and they got free hits on our quarterback, now we're going to show things pre-snap to make you think that you have to protect this. And then we're going to drop the guys in coverage, 3-man rush, and force you to try to get the ball out quickly or have 8-man in coverage. That's the
rally and tackle. Yeah.
Yep.
So one of the things that I think the Packers front has had to adjust to, Joe Barry was a very static defense. They just lined up and played. And when you've got guys that can win one-on-ones, you can do that. The Packers are trying to run a lot more games up front. They're trying to be more creative with the way they move these guys around. And it's taken some time to adjust to that for this team. One of the most stunt-heavy defenses in football this year. You played on a defense with maybe the greatest stunting duo I've ever seen with the Smith brothers. Is that something that you have to build chemistry on? Did you guys just fall into, these guys just get it with each other? Like, what is the process of building chemistry with that?
Well, first off, you have to have players that are extremely powerful or quick and that can get off on the snap, that can get penetration that teams are worried about. You have to have a defensive end that can just win one-on-one off the edge, mano-a-mano. And when you have that, along with the defensive tackle, now you can implement the games. And the games is about rhythm, timing, and penetration, along with power. And then you also have to have an unselfishness. A lot of times that defensive end has to take 3 steps upfield to wrap to the inside B gap, but he has to gather the attention of that offensive tackle to make him kick back. And then that defensive tackle has to hit the inside hip of that tackle to get penetration and to get him to stick to him, while also getting enough penetration to get the guard to stay on him to allow that end to come free. And then a lot of times it's not the end that comes free, it's that defensive tackle that's double bumping out the tackle and then looping around. That's the guy that usually gets the tackle. But you have to have unselfish guys that understand what's the objective and then go out there on Sunday and execute it with rhythm and speed.
What's struck me as you were describing that is it sounded like you were describing a running play. Aim point for the running back and the blocking game. It's almost like the reverse of a running play, it seems like.
Absolutely. And that's what people don't understand, the intricacies of defense. They think you just throw guys out there, but you might have a 3-man game, right? Where you're getting 2 guys to the front side, getting 3-4 yards of penetration, right? Looping inside, and then another guy takes 3 steps backside and loops all the way around to attack a sliding protection. It's rhythm and timing and understanding the objective. That's what the great coaches can do. They can tell you what the objective is, give you a great plan to allow you to go out there and execute it without having to think about it. And there's other ways to run games. You can run a TT stunt on the inside, right? Where you have defensive tackles that are penetrating, picking for each other, might be able to throw an arm in there around the hip and not get it called. And another guy wrapping, but not just wrapping wildly or loosely. You're wrapping tight in the A gap to get a direct rush on the quarterback. These are the details that are in every level of defense.
All right, more with Donte Whitner here on Locked on Packers. That's next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Right now, the Packers up to 3-point favorites, and I think right now they are splitting the baby. They don't know if Brock Purdy is going to play. That price is building in the potential that he doesn't. Doesn't look like Nick Bosa is going to play. I think that price also builds in the potential that Nick Bosa is either going to play very limited or is going to be out for the game. So I also think this might be the best price you're going to get in the next 24 hours. If it turns out those guys are not going to play, it could get to 7, I think, by game time if both are obviously out by the time that we get to Sunday. So now is the time to jump on that. If you want to jump on that, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, you could use that first $5 bet on the Packers to cover the -3, or just bet on the money line. Frankly, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NFL now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. This 49ers offense, they lose Brandon Ayuk, and it seems like they are now struggling to be able to manufacture explosives when in the Kyle Shanahan era, the run game, whether it's the passing game, it seems like no one is better at manufacturing explosives than this offense. Why do you think they've made some of the changes that they have? More of the straight drop back game, less play action. The structure of the offense seems to be working so well. Why do you think Kyle Shanahan has made this subtle shift?
Well, because of the lack of personnel. When you go into a game and you don't have Brandon Ayuk, you don't have George Kittle.
Yeah.
You're probably in a problem zone. So I think that's part of the reason. But then also just the lack of ability to create explosives in the running game.
Yeah.
That's what really dictates what the 49ers offense can do. And when you look intricately at what they lack is timing in the run game. A lot of times when they're dual blocking and trying to double up to the next level, you have one guy that's leaving too quickly that didn't really help the inside guard and allow cross face, right? Trying to get up to a speedy linebacker, or you have Jake Brendel who initially gets a good block and then the defensive tackle double gaps it and throws him to the ground, makes a tackle on something that was blocked up for 30 yards. And usually when you create explosives in the running game, that's when teams have to put another guy in the box. They start to sell out. They start to put eyes in the wrong place, stare at the quarterback, exchange. The play action game is wide open to allow guys to catch the ball freely in the defense without many defenders around. And then that's when the yards after the catch comes into play. So that's one of the reasons why Kyle Shanahan has made tremendous changes. But I think that you're going to get the full gauntlet this weekend because this is really a must-win game for the 49ers.
Well, and George Kittle, you mentioned it. He changes the offense so much. I mean, there's a 2-yard per carry difference when he's on the field versus when he's not running the ball. They average over 5 yards per carry running the ball when he's on the field and just shade over 3 when he's not. He's just a Hall of Fame caliber player who still physically can be a huge difference maker for them. let's finish up talking about the Packers offense and the way the 49ers are going to have to defend them. There's been some discussion about the Packers' lack of a true number one, and they get everybody involved in a similar way to the 49ers, but they have better high-level players in San Francisco, Ayuk, Debo. If as a defender, what are you more scared of, a team that has, like the Justin Jefferson setup where it's one guy and then some ancillary pieces, or a team that has maybe 4 or 5 really good players who are more or less interchangeable?
A team that has 4 or 5 players that are interchangeable, that can do multiple things. For example, Jaden Reed, the ability to run the swing screen and the fly sweep, and to have the courage to cut back into the teeth of the defense and the speed to take it the distance. Then you have Wicks, who separates highly from man coverage, good after the catch. And then you have Dobbs, who I've seen run some phenomenal routes.
Yeah.
And then you have Christian Watson, and then you have a running game. So it makes it more difficult to key in on what you want to do, especially when you have all the motion shifts and different personnel groups. When you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, or a true number one, he's going to get 10 targets a game. There are certain things you can do to coverage to really take him away and make everybody else beat you. So if you have 2 safeties back there and he's aligned at number 3 on a trip set, you got a backside safety watch him, a linebacker bump him, the front side safety watch him, put the nickel in the other corners in, man-to-man coverage or some type of other zone. If he's at number 2, you're going to have a nickel on him or safety over the top, taking away the deep ball. If he's at number 1, you can play cover 2 with a corner in front and a safety behind him. If you have so many different guys that can do everything, who do you really lock in on? So I think that having that versatility, that multitude of different playmakers is a plus for not only just this Green Bay offense, but the 49ers or anybody that can get multiple offensive weapons that are especially good after the catch.
We'll finish up here, and I appreciate your time. What do you make of Jordan Love right now?
I think that he has all the tools and capabilities of a top 3 quarterback in the National Football League. I think that he's the best when he gets to his back foot and he comes forward and he knows where to throw the football. But like all other young quarterbacks, he can tend to get in trouble when he stares down or locks into things and really doesn't go through his reads. They're protecting him well. I see that they're tied for first in sacks given up.
Yep.
So, not having time in the pocket is no reason for having 11 interceptions,
leads the league.
9 consecutive games, which tells me that there are some defenses that are doing some things with pre-snap alignments, movements, where he's locked in and they're intercepting the football. But other than that, if he can cut down on the turnovers, I think he has a tremendously bright future, and so does the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, we saw it all in the playoff game last year. He made a couple throws in that game. The one rolling to his left to Romeo Doubs on the left sideline was outrageously good. And then he just short circuits on 2 plays in the second half, and that's your ball game. So we've seen him. He's got a pair of game-winning drives already this year in that similar situation. Hey, I got the ball, less than 2 minutes left. I got to go make a play. Wasn't against the 49ers. So we'll see. 49ers have their season on the line, really, right? Like this is it for them. Do you expect to see a different level of intensity from them, or have you been waiting all year for that? I mean, I know they've been waiting all year for that.
I'm expecting to see a different level of intensity and sense of urgency. I'm expecting to see Kyle Shanahan's best game as an offensive coordinator this year. And for the defense, I'm looking for them to finish. This is going to be a game where they're going to have to rush in unison and make sure that they're not too far up the field to allow Jordan Love to step up in those C gaps and really see the field. They're going to have to do a good job pre-snap aligning and with the disguise. And on offense, they're going to have to score in the red zone. The 49ers are bottom third of the league in red zone production. And with getting George Kittle back, that should be a lot of help to the improvement of the running game with Christian McCaffrey. And I think they need to see a little bit more of Jordan Mason. So, I think the 49ers are at a point, and this hasn't really happened in the last 3-4 years, where they're getting a lot of negative scrutiny from the media. And a lot of people are saying that they're pretenders and they don't believe that this team is capable of making a long playoff push or winning a Super Bowl. And I truly believe that with the type of players that the 49ers have in that locker room, this is exactly what they need. They need a game on the road, backs against the wall, to really dig deep and bring out that championship mentality. So I think this is going to be a great game on Sunday.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of 2021 when they came into the playoffs. They needed to win a couple at the end to get in, and then it was like, you can't tell us anything. And they carried that attitude through. For Packers fans, that is absolutely what they are most concerned about right now, is this team finding that groove at the wrong time for the Packers. But we will see. Donte, appreciate your time, man, as always.
Thank you, Peter. You have a great one. Enjoy the game.
All right, thanks to Donte Whitner for coming back on the show with us. Awesome to talk with him. The technique stuff, I loved. I was in heaven listening to that. I love when you have a player willing to get as granular in the details on that. I love the conversations about the stunt, the comparison to the run game. That clicked in my brain as we were talking about it. So really a cool deal there. Live after the game on Sunday, I think the Packers win. This is turning into the season from hell for the 49ers. And I think the Packers can drive in the nail in the coffin. So we have that to look forward to potentially on Sunday, or a gut-wrenching defeat to Josh Dobbs and whoever is playing instead of Nick Bosa. I guess that we have that to look forward to as well. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast. We're over on Blue Sky. All the social medias. Locked on Packers now on Blue Sky as well. So we're everywhere all the time, so you can stay locked on Packers.